Yes, sir.
I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Education for March 2nd, 2022. If everyone can stand and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, welcome our guests. We have a number of presentations tonight, which are going to be just wonderful, including from our regional BOCES. So we very much appreciate them coming. And I want to just briefly say, it's wonderful, grateful that we seem to be on a positive path in terms of the levels of COVID in the state, in the country, in the region, the county. The governor's pronouncement certainly changes our environments in the schools, and a lot of positives with that. And we just one of the big positives is just that we don't have the level of people being out sick, the possibility for people having even greater consequences from the COVID, so that is wonderful. We are in full gear with our extracurricular activities that make it all, that are the enrichment to this, and I want to give a special thanks to all the parents and caregivers who support their students in these extracurricular activities, from sports to the concerts. Just last night, I was at an elementary school band, orchestra, and chorus concert, and it's wonderful to have that event. It was very well attended by parents and caregivers, and I also want to have a big thanks to all of our district staff members who either serve as aides and guides to those events, but also who just volunteer at them or even just come to support students. And I just want to share one anecdote. At the elementary school concert, in one of the groups, we have a special education student who is part of that, and the teacher aide, and several of the other teachers from the school came to support that student and be part of that. And that's just our staff and our instructional staff going above and beyond to be part of our school community. And I absolutely want to thank everyone for that. And going forward through the spring, I just absolutely hope that we continue to have all of these kind of activities and have our in-person instruction in the schools and are able to do all these extracurricular activities as well. So. We're on to our recognition portion of our agenda.
Thank you very much. Some of you are aware that on December 8th, earlier this winter, we held the third annual, or technically the Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce held the third annual Malta Food Fest. I have to tell you, we are so fortunate, and you've heard me say this before, the number of community partners that we have that really just dig in on behalf of our kids. Todd Shimkus is here tonight, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. Todd, working with Adrian Snow, our Associate Principal over at TechSmart, and Kelly Elliott, our Director of Support Programs for fundraising, and a number of other people worked together on this one, and they raised $5,340 between online ticket sales and the auction. Over the course of 3 years now, we are over $18,000 that this one event has raised that goes to our Partnership and Innovation Fund. That fosters a number of activities from robotics to the backpack program, a number of things that are solely focused on our students. So once again, if Todd Shimkus could come up and join us in the front. Some of you are aware, you've seen the various feeds that Todd sends out on behalf of the county. Not only is Todd just a tireless worker, the innovation that Todd brings to his job, and quite frankly, that I'm a little jealous, the ease at which he seems to be able to do it, really is quite striking. But what comes in the door first, if you don't know Todd, is the humility with which he approaches this work. And that really just makes him that much more of a great partner for our district. He's focused on kids, he's focused on our region, he's focused on positively developing us moving forward. His partnership in this activity alone obviously has generated just fantastic resources for our students. So Todd, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, well, we probably don't want to stand in front of that screen. That sounds good. Jason, you want to come up? Oh, fantastic. We just had the audit, so we'll want to deposit that right away.
Is that it for?
One more piece that is not on the agenda. Today was a big deal for the entire district. It was palpable in our buildings today, where you could feel this proverbial fog start to lift. We saw each other's faces for the first time in a long time during the school day. The work that has gone into this from every employee in the district, the Board of Education, the parents that have pitched in on this. We've had meetings here where you've been treated hostilely, where the administration has been treated hostilely. But I have to tell you, what you don't see is the day-to-day positivity that just continues to happen on behalf of our kids. You'll see some reading data later on tonight that really demonstrates that even in all of this, we've kept the learning moving forward. We've kept things on track. We've kept things moving forward in the most positive light that we could. But today really represented more than just the end game of a governor's announcement. It is a change for us in how we will move forward. It's going to take us a few days to get our feet under us, quite frankly. You could see the hesitation. It's like everybody was on a 5-second delay today, just trying to remember, do I have to wear a mask, do I not? We had a number of our students, a number of our staff still choosing to wear masks. That's certainly within their right. But we are hoping, as Jason suggested, that this is the beginning of really, we're not going back to normal. We're past that. Those days are gone. But we're going to be close, right? The only way that we're close is by literally the hundreds and hundreds of people who have worked together on behalf of our kids to keep things moving forward in the most positive way. So to my team in the district, 842 I think we're at now, a truly heartfelt thank you to the board for your support as we've gone through. Moms and dads, just can't say enough for the flexibility. Most importantly to the kids, here we go. And I have to say, being at the dodgeball tournament tonight, my goodness, the energy there really represented what I think we'll have going forward. So thanks to all of you for that.
Thank you, Ken. And that's it for recognition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next up, we have a presentation from our regional BOCES that we are part of. It is the Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, Essex BOCES. And we have the district superintendent, Jim Dexter, here. We have Dr. Parker, part of his staff, and we have one of the board members, Dave Petruska, here as well. So I think with that, if we are ready technically, we can have the presentation, please.
Do you want me to use this right
Up
here
here,
or that
please.
one up here? So why don't we,
Does he have the
good
slide
evening,
in?
everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Furneaux said, my name is James Dexter, and I'm privileged to be the district superintendent for the Washington, Saratoga, Warren, Hamilton, Essex BOCES. And with me tonight is Dr. Trina Parker. She's the assistant superintendent for educational support programs. And we have Dave Petruska, who's a member of the BOCES board. He's a short timer. He's only been on this board since the early 1980s. So it's really our privilege to be here tonight and to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about the BOCES. Traditionally, we'll come out to districts each year, and the best way we can talk about the programs we have and the kids you send is to bring some of those kids, and that's what we've done tonight. So I always like to start with the kids, but just to give a little preview, normally we just have a couple sections, but this year we added a few slides. The only reason I added those slides are I think every once in a while it's a good opportunity to talk to the board members about the cooperative as a whole, because these programs, the BOCES, is a cooperative of school districts. Nothing more, nothing less. These are your programs, these are your buildings, these are what you do, and every once in a while I think it's important to kind of fill the boards in on where we are, some of the challenges that we face, some of the good things that are happening, and just to make sure you have those ideas. But then everyone should have hopefully a card stock that we put out, and we'll go over that. And then while Dr. Parker have some of the students talk to you, I do have some very high-priced pens that I'm going to send out. They're really pretty cheap, but they do have a nice BOCES logo on them, and they actually do write, but just a little something to remember us by tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Parker, and we'll hear from some of your students.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for having us. I always get the best part of this presentation, which is an opportunity to introduce our students and have you interact with your students. And so we'll talk to you a little bit about their experiences. They'll have an opportunity in a moment to talk with you. But we just wanted to start off with telling you a little bit about our programs and about what we do and what we strive for, which is to provide high-quality learning experiences for students through all of our trades programs. And you're going to hear our students talk tonight about how they got started, how they became interested in CTE, about their internship experiences, and really about their day-to-day. So all of our programs offer opportunities for internships. We offer Skills USA programming that our students will talk to you about, leadership experiences for our kids. All of our students in our 2-year CTE programs have the opportunity to engage in not only high-quality hands-on learning experiences, learning about the field, but also to engage in opportunities to earn certifications in their field, to develop portfolios, to interact with business and industry partners, to really set them on a path toward their future. And we're really proud of all of the programs that we offer. And so without further ado, I'll have the students tell you a little bit themselves so you can take their word for it instead of mine. So I'll have them come on up. And I know you guys are so excited about being up here, but I won't make you stand in front of the microphone. I'll just have you start with introducing yourself. What program are you in? Just your name and program and what year you are.
My name is Shay Grignon. I'm in construction trades, and I'm a senior, so that's the second year.
My name's Ian Duncan. I'm a senior as well in the construction program.
Okay. So why don't you start with just telling us a little bit about what is your program, what does your day-to-day look like?
Honestly, our program is more about like everything. It's got like all of construction combined. Like you do the framing, we do the roofing, we're doing electric work. We get all different types of like experience so that we don't have to pick like one certain area of it.
And what would you say? What's your day-to-day look like?
Around the same thing. We have a shop in our class that we work in every day. We're building a house in it right now, like a mini house. We're doing all different types of work to it.
And can you guys tell me a little bit about English and math and what does that look like? If you don't know, we have English and math embedded within our programs. It's a pretty unique opportunity for our students. So talk a little bit about what does ELA look like?
English is more like the budgeting part of like building a house. You would figure out like the material costs. You would figure out like loan prices, like to take out a loan for a house, how much it would cost after a certain amount of years. English also, we learn like specific like expectations for certain areas and certain parts of like the houses that we need to learn.
Nice. Anything else you can think of for English or math?
English and math is mostly into what we will be using in the field that we go into work. English is more in how we'll speak, how to be proper when dealing with people. And the math is all budgeting and buying like supplies.
Nice. And what about internships? What can you tell us about your internship experiences?
I just started my internship with Hunt Construction. I think I'll be working there for 3 months. They're going to be teaching me about everything throughout the field and all the trade.
Nice.
And the best part about internships is usually if you are like getting good with them, it's like a good job opportunity after you graduate.
Nice. And what about Skills USA? So Skills USA is our leadership opportunity for students. All of our students participate in Skills USA or have the opportunity to participate in Skills USA. Can you tell us a little bit about Skills and what you know about Skills and your interaction with Skills?
Skills, I feel like most people put like a thing on Skills that you have to be like high grade, you know what I mean? It's called Skills. You have to have skill to be in there, but honestly, you just have to love what you're doing enough to be in there. And you do like compete. You go against like state and national level. Like I think it's schools like all over the place, obviously. But you just show off like what you're working on. It depends on what class you're in, and there's just like specific things for that class, and you just compete at national levels.
And did you just recently have an interaction with math?
Yes,
Okay,
related
what was that?
technical math. I was offered to take a random test one day, and you know, kids, when you're offered to take a test, they're gonna obviously say no, but I randomly said yes, so I was like, okay. And 2 days later, the teacher came in and she was like, you guys placed second and third, and you're gonna be going to like compete against other kids. And related technical math is like the math of pretty much all the classes like combined. Like I'm not only doing the budgeting of construction, I also like had random like nursing questions on there too. So it's just everything mixed.
Nice. What's really nice about our integrated math and ELA is that the instructors work side by side, just right in the classroom, really hands-on and really relevant math and English learning. So it's really nice to see that all come together for the students. Can you guys talk a little bit about how you became interested in your programs?
I became interested in the program through mostly my father. He worked construction, so I figured it'd be an easy field to transition into, seeing as he has done work and I've worked with him before. It'd be easy for me.
And did you go on one of the tours prior to entering the program?
Yes, I also went on one of the tours for the construction program before entering the program the year prior.
Nice. And what about you?
Mine was actually my dad as well, but my dad, obviously a female, so my dad was like, no, I don't want you in that trade. Like, it's not for girls, I guess. But I decided I was going to do it anyway. There's good money, and I like what I'm doing, so
And would you say it's for girls?
yes.
Absolutely.
I say it's not for anybody specific. You just got to like what you're doing.
Wonderful. And what are some of your plans after graduation?
My plans are probably go to college to become an electrician or work electrical of some sort.
Nice.
There's a possibility of college for construction management, but I'm going to continue with framing after I graduate for now and go for my real estate license.
Excellent.
Wow.
These are great kids, aren't they? What's your favorite part of the program?
Just everything about it, honestly.
My favorite part of the program is the hands-on activities and actually engaging with other students. I feel like it's more of a way to get along.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for your students?
Is there a certain amount of hours that you have to complete for the internship that you guys do?
I believe so.
I don't know exactly, but I just started my internship actually today. It was the first time I got there, and we have time cards we fill out each and every time we go. So I think it does count towards a certain amount of hours we work.
And internships are set up for each of our students in their senior year. So in their junior year, they engage in a lot of work-based learning experiences, and then for their senior year, they actually have the on-site internship experiences that vary per student.
We also get our OSHA 10-hour courses at the end of our.
I was going to comment that a lot of the programs lead to actual certifications right at the end. So the students are not only work ready, but they're also certified and have some of the certifications that they need, as opposed to starting that process like after they graduate from high school.
Absolutely, and then you heard them talk a little bit about those soft skills that they really work on, those presentation skills, engaging with employers, so that when our students leave our program, they really are career ready.
So to that point, kids, I've had the same question for 20 years. How do you talk to your classmates about breaking what might be seen as a stigma for some of these programs? Where they're nervous about going into it, I don't know if that's for me. Women in the trades, for example, that's a huge barrier, and kudos to
Yeah.
you for breaking that. How do you talk to your classmates about this?
For me, it's definitely harder because all the classmates are guys, so they're all doing their own thing. But I don't know. You just have to like remind them that we kind of like are like the foundation of things. So in order to keep everything working smoothly, we have to continue our jobs. And if you don't like it, then obviously it's not forced to do. But you just gotta keep your head on the right track. We're not children. We have to grow up and do our job.
You know what, you're way ahead of a lot of your classmates, actually, because 10 or 15 years from now, when they're trying to find a skilled, licensed tradesperson to come to their place to do some work for them, they'll know how important it is and what a great career path it is for doing this, and you have a leg up on that, knowing that now.
Kids, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you, great job.
Yes. Thank you very much.
And we want to thank you for sending us, these are just two of the many wonderful students that you send our way. And our career and technical education centers are different than 30 years ago. The students who are there are serious. Districts don't send students who don't show up and are discipline problems. Those kids are serious in those centers, and we're really thankful for the support that you provide. What I wanted to do next is just kind of just briefly go over what this document is. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading it for you, but a few years ago, some of the boards said, what would be helpful to us is if you could give us some data and just a one-pager on some of the different BOCES program, how many kids, what your completion rates are, all those type of things. And we do have extra copies if anyone in the audience wishes to have them, but you'll see we have it broken up into a couple different ways. The top is just some data and statistics on our career and technical education program. The total number of students enrolled, and that includes, we do get some students from the Capital Region BOCES, as well as those students in our programs. And the completion rate, the way the state looks at the completion rate, so we do have a fairly high completion rate of students who do come to our program, and that's the way they do it. We have 55 articulation agreements in place between our BOCES and various colleges and universities, and 345 business partners. We do have New Visions programs, and we do have an early college program. And I also want to note that our BOCES supports the early college and programs that are offered by the Ballston Spa. We've done that since day one. Of course, our job is not just to run programs that are, quote, BOCES programs. It's to use the power of the BOCES to support all students. And we're really proud to support your program. The way I look at it is, I want all kids to have access to a number of pathways, and doesn't matter where those pathways come from, but we know darn well that when kids can choose their learning, they can be involved in their pathway, that those pathways are relevant in the economy, and we want to support that, and we're privileged to partner with your team here in doing that. We also have an exceptional learner program, and that's generally for children who can't be educated in their own district. Most districts do have students who go to the program. We do have a few different types of program. We have a school-to-work program, what's called Basic Employability Skills Training Program, a therapeutic support program, which is the majority of the children who we serve, and we have an autistic program called BOCES Educating Autistic and Related Service Disorders. As you know, every district has their own ability or capability of educating children with special needs, and we tend to get students mostly in our therapeutic support programs. We try to have certain things in place that we use. So we use, first of all, we have a high-quality curriculum that we've put in place. We're really proud of. We have a strong literacy program. I know that's really important to this district. We have what's called the Boys Town Behavioral Management System, which is a lot more than a token economy system. It's really about explicit instruction in social skills that some of those children need assistance with. And also, we have a number of other supports in place for those kids. If you turn the page, we have a school support division, and our school support services is really about supporting the school districts in the region with the services that they wish to have. So we have communication services, a school development program, which is about professional development, school improvement services, school library services, enrichment services, and instructional technology, all of which in one way or another that your district is involved with to various levels. And we have some data that you can look at. And then we have some administrative support, administrative programs, including the substitute teacher registry. We have a health insurance benefit program. So for your employees and other who are enrolling into the health insurance plan, they go through our health insurance support office. And you can see some of the pieces. We do board training. And then the last thing I just wanted to, obviously, we are heavily involved in the health insurance consortium. Brian here is an important partner in that, and a workers' compensation consortium, which I don't believe that you're a part of. You have your own, because you guys are big enough. So I just like to hand this out every year, and just so you have any data, and I think it's just hopefully helpful to you in understanding the scope of some of the work we do.
And for those of us in the audience, there are additional copies right on the end of that table and also right up at the front when you came in as well.
The last thing I wanted to do, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the things on the horizon for the next 3 to 5 years. And the reason I'm doing that is frankly because this is my last year as district superintendent. I'm retiring in August of this year, and I've been privileged to be here. It's my 17th year being a superintendent, 12 in this role, and it's time for a new pathway for me. But I think it's always important. I'm really proud of the work that our board has done, that our group of superintendents have done, with our facilities, our programs, but there's always new challenges, always new things to think about, and what I'm trying to do is kind of keep those on the frontal lobe as I transition and a new district superintendent transitions in. I want to just touch base on a few of those challenges. The first is we do have a declining enrollment in the supervisor district. It affects different districts differently, particularly our North Country districts, but not all in our North Country districts, and I'll show you some data. Long-range facilities planning, the districts own the BOCES. These are your programs. The districts own the buildings, so every once in a while it's good to make sure you understand where we are with our facilities. And it's interesting that this came up earlier, but we are trying to make a little bit of a case across the region and across the state and really across the nation that we need to do a better job bringing young ladies into the skilled trades. I have some data. We've just decided it's time to do something about it. We can't do it alone. The districts are partners, and they know that. We're all a partner in this work. So just a few things on the enrollment. I have too many cover slides, I always say, but I don't know why I don't change that. So 10 years ago in this region, we had 40,679 students, and as of this year, we had 36,238. So as you can see, the decline in enrollment continues. We're fortunate in this area. The decline is actually better in this area than other areas of the state. If you go out to western New York, you go to Utica, you go to the southern tier, you'll see some areas with more significant declines. New York City, not so much. Some of the other cities, not so much. But in upstate New York, we're really seeing that.
And that's the 31 districts
That's
that comprise
31 school districts in this
BOCES.
BOCES, yes, correct, in this supervisor district. But I have a couple things to think about. It's interesting as time has gone on. So I have a chart here, and if you look, the orange is the number of juniors and seniors in the BOCES region. So right this year we have, as of the day we took that data, 54, 55. And then the blue is the number of students involved in career and technical education across the region. Interesting enough, our numbers as the region decline but the percentage of students who are interested and involved in career and technical education have gone up. And we believe that that trend will probably continue. I think a lot of parents are starting to look at college costs, student debt, and opportunities, and maybe rethinking a little bit about these options. And I think Ken's question was really a poignant one of how do we help more and more youngsters realize that having a pathway that goes into the trades can be a really great way to make a living. We have lots of stories across the region of students who are enormously successful, have businesses or entrepreneurs. So we're really proud of that. But I know that you're a little bit of one of our larger districts, but I want you to think a little bit about all of our districts in our region, and as we think through, as we have declining enrollments, I think there's two ways to look at this. Do you start reducing the number of programs and kind of rolling up the carpet, or do you think about, as a region, do we offer more programs, and particularly the smaller districts who may not be able to offer as many opportunities, do we offer more opportunities as the region gets smaller? This is our Early College Career Academy and PTech, which really it's both. This is our enrollment. We had a decline in our enrollment this year because we did have through the colleges about 12 to 14 students who, unfortunately, because of their vaccination status, the college would not let them continue. So we actually were above, but we've had steady growth in our Early College Career Academy. I know this is not a big program for you because you have your own, but what we've learned over the years is when we offer more pathways, students are interested in those pathways. So we created this program. This program is in conjunction with SUNY Adirondack. They're on the campus, their junior and senior year. For us, the PTech program starts, we have districts that offer the PTech in 9th and 10th grade in their college campuses. They transition to SUNY Adirondack, their 11th and 12th grade year, and we have 4 pathways: advanced manufacturing, new media, IT technology and cybersecurity, and business and entrepreneurship. How can I miss that? Business entrepreneurship, we just added a new section that's been very popular, much more popular. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and so we know that business, which is the #1 major in colleges, is really important, but teaching that entrepreneurial activity. There's a lot of kids who want to make a lot of money out there. They just need to find their avenue. But what we've learned is more kids will choose pathways if we have more pathways. So my thinking is, as I transition out and other people start to transition in, what are we missing? Are there more opportunities for all kids? And the way the BOCES works is, of course, it's really designed for all students. So in some small districts, they may only have a couple students who really want to participate because they only have so many students. But the beauty of the BOCES programs is it really provides incentives for districts and opportunity for all districts to participate and to make sure that there's rich programs for all kids. And that's why we need the larger districts, the medium-sized districts, and the smaller districts to all participate to the degree that makes sense for them. The other thing that you may not know is our adult programs. We call it Education Training for Adults, ETA, and our ETA programs, and Dr. Parker leads our ETA programs, have grown substantially. And this is really where you don't pay tuition for the adult programs. These come in from self-pay, or students are getting scholarships. But Trina, you want to talk a little bit about some of our programs and some of the work we've been doing in ETA?
Yeah, so ETA is one of the divisions that we're really proud of the growth that we've seen there. And what we've tried to do is really mirror the opportunities that we provide in CTE to adults in the region. And what we find, you see those numbers increasing. There are a lot of adults in the region who are really interested in really taking advantage of those pathways. And so every year we're adding more and more programs based on our collaboration from industry, based on our feedback from students who are asking about different programs. This past year we added, for example, a marine technology program, which is, it seems like a no-brainer for our region, right? That we would have a marine technology training program. We have a machine tool program, which has been huge for our machine tool industry and employers in the region. And so we have an automotive program. We have, tons of programs, an HVAC program that's really popular. Huge right now is our CDL program, right? We can't even keep pace with the amount of individuals who are calling for CDL training. And so it's really great for us to be able to extend those opportunities to the adults in our region so that we can continue that continuum that we've built for our students. And so it's been a really, really great opportunity for us, and we just continue to add more programs based on need.
And of course, this year, this was just a snapshot taken a little while ago. I guarantee you by the time this year's over, we'll have exceeded the data from last year. And of course, our programs are really vocationally based and designed to help students not only get the skills necessary, but every single one of them are connected with employers. So every time there's a program, those employers are not only part of helping to write our program, but at the end, they're there to offer the students jobs. And that's been one of the great things that Trina has done, is really connecting our employers with every single one of our programs.
And Jim, I just want to reinforce, you did say it, but it went through kind of quickly. The adult training programs, those are not financed by the component school districts. It's a self-financed program within the BOCES, but
Right.
the component school districts do not finance it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And which kind of takes us, as we grow and we think about our future and we think about what programs we do or don't offer moving forward, we also have to think a little bit long-term about some of our facilities. And we've been very fortunate in this BOCES. Our school districts have done an amazing job of giving us the resources we need to keep our facilities current. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But we do have some challenges that I think are going to come up in the next 3 to 5 years. None of them are urgent, but I just want to kind of put them on the radar, because I think in the next few years, whoever replaces me are probably going to ask the districts to get involved in some decisions. When I got here, we had some work that needed to be done in these buildings, but that work is done. We're in good shape. But when we talk about the amount of space we have, the amount of lab space we have, and a few other things, there's probably some work to be done in the next 3 to 5 years. So as far as our facilities, there's 4 main instructional facilities that we have. First of all, we have the 2 big tech centers, the F. Donald Myers Center in Henning Road, which many of your students go to, and the Southern Adirondack Educational Center in Hudson Falls. Both of them are fairly large buildings. They're all in good shape. The boilers are good. The roofs are good. We still have a little parking lot and drainage work to do at the Myers, but all in all, they're in good shape. The district have done a great job through the years, giving us the resources we need to take care of them, and our board is very, very thoughtful and spends a lot of time on the projects that we do on an annual basis. We also rent 2 spaces. The first is the Stanford Street Teaching and Learning Center, and that's really for our therapeutic support programs. That's in Glens Falls. Those are mostly children from kindergarten to 6th grade. And then we have our Washington Street Teaching and Learning Center. That's in Fort Edward. We rent that from the diocese. That school mostly houses children in our therapeutic support programs and sometimes some 412 programs, and that's in Fort Edward. We lease both of those spaces, and there are reasons. Excuse me, we can get a bill from Mr. Sirianni for this, I'm pretty sure. We're on a tight ship, I know. So, but we do lease that, and there's reasons that in the BOCES world of why you would rent and why you'd lease. We don't have time to get into that. But I think long-term, our programs are maxed out some of these facilities, and we don't have the best locations because we have to go into a school facility that meets the standards. And so we do get sometimes a lot of questions from particularly districts in the southern end of the BOCES who say, we'd like to access some more of these programs, but we don't have great locations. So I can't say what the exact solution is to some of these, but I do know Washington Street, the diocese does own it, but it needs a lot of work. And of course, we're not going to put a lot of taxpayer money into those facilities. So I think long term, there's probably some thinking about some of these facilities that need to be gone through. The first is we do have a number of long-term program needs at Myers and SAAC, some of the amount of shop space, the amount of total square footage. We do about $800,000 of projects per year through capital work. We're fortunate. We have no long-term debt except for an energy project, which is almost paid off. And of course, we use a lot of energy at these tech shops, and we've actually saved a ton through this energy project. It's been a very big success for us. But we do have some long-term needs that are probably going to go beyond what we can do with the $800,000 we have per year. We have limited space for expansion. So if we do talk about adding new programs, so next year we're planning on adding animal science to Myers Center, and we're adding the next year after that another section of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning to the Hudson Falls building. But we really have no shop space. We use the space differently. We all teach, you know, your district has been a great model of when you rehab a building, what does it look like? Instruction doesn't look like it did 15, 20 years ago when you had a bunch of classrooms, a nurse, and a principal. We too have some of those long-term needs that I think have to be thought about as how our space is used, what's the design of the space, and what are the instructional goals for that space. As I mentioned before, Washington Street has some long-term needs. Right now it works great for us. We have a great deal on the lease. We really do. The diocese and the church in Fort Edward could not be better landlords. They could not be more helpful. But also, we also know they don't have millions of dollars to plunk into this facility to update it to where it needs to be for the kids who are in it. So I think long-term, and as I mentioned, there is some need and interest in having elementary programming in the southern part of the BOCES. And I don't have the answer, but I think probably in the next few years, people might start asking questions of, would it make sense for us to put up a building somewhere, maybe in exit 16, exit 15, that people can get to from all areas, and that maybe meets the needs of the students, and what would the financial implications for that be? Is there some long-term work that for some of our tech shops that need to be done? And I think the time to talk about this is years in advance. Obviously, you always start with educational programming and your vision for your educational programming, then you walk into the facilities. I've been really privileged to conquer a number of challenges since I've been here, and I'm proud of that, but I think there's a new set of challenges that probably are going to come your way in the next several years, and I just wanted to take a time to make sure people are aware of that. And so if there is a new person that comes in, they're saying, oh, gee, the new person's here, they just want to build stuff. That's not the discussion that would happen. And the last thing I just wanted to talk about is something that we are passionate about, and it is women in the skilled trades. It just so happened to be you had a young lady here today. We were thrilled about that. But really, when we look at our data and we look at the job opportunities that exist, every day we have companies pound down our doors for workers. If they can weld, they'll hire them. If they're CDL and they can drive, they'll hire them. If they are from construction trades, you know, Bonaccio Construction hired 3 of our kids last year right out of the program. They'll hire them. This is your data, and Ken has the data slide. I know it's posted up in your materials, but I just want to point out a few things. So this is our combined programs for welding, for our programs both at Myers and at the Southern Adirondack Educational Center. And so welding here, there's 67 students in welding this year. 67 of them are young men, 1 is a young lady. Heavy equipment and diesel repair, 130 young men, 40 young ladies. Environmental conservation, 43 young men, 11 young ladies, which is great. Happens to be that one of the instructors is a woman. I think that helps a lot. Construction trades, 59 young men, 5 young women. Auto tech, 75 young men, 6 young ladies. Auto body, which we only have at one site, 20 young men, 3 young ladies. And yes, we have programs that go the other direction. I think the world of Health Doc, I want more males in Health Doc. I absolutely do. So I don't want to ignore those trends. But when you look at where the best paying jobs are and the opportunities are, and where the entrepreneurial opportunities are, we realize we have more work to do. And we know this is not unique to this BOCES. I mean, not unique to, this BOCES. It happens, if you look at the data, in almost every BOCES, you see the exact same trends. It was interesting when we've researched this, the young lady who was here tonight, what do we hear from the young ladies in our programs? Most of them say, I've got somebody in the business or I have a family connection. That's why they're in the program. Young ladies, and we have a lot of that for our young men too, but young ladies rarely pick programs that pay the most and have the greatest opportunities just by themselves. So we've decided we're going to do 3 things different. First is we're going to recruit differently. The second thing, we're going to support the young ladies in the program differently. Matter of fact, we had something going on tonight. We have an actual mentor program now that with business and industry mentors and young ladies. And we have to connect young ladies to the workforce differently. So those are the 3 things we do. We've got a committee that is put together. But more importantly, we've already started it. We've already brought young ladies into the program. We had business and industry leaders who were females talk to those young ladies. They got a chance to go in the programs, to do hands-on activities. And they kept saying to us, we want to do this, we want to do this. So we know as a BOCES, We have a lot of work to do, and we have to do better. But we also know that this is a systemic issue. It goes beyond us. We also are hoping our school district partners will think about the way they recruit, the way they talk to young ladies about some of these programs, maybe some of the activities they send them to, internships or, business visits, and really try to help young ladies rethink about career and technical education. So I think you're going to see a lot of this work across the state in the next couple of years. A number of BOCES have been asking us, and I'm always hesitant because we don't have the results. All we've done, we've done a great job of admiring the problem, but we don't really have the results yet. And I like to think of outcomes first, but I'm happy to know that other BOCES are interested in partnering with us on this program. This is some of the unique data. And then we do have, we did some kickoff activities this year. As of today, because this is the month of Women's Month, and this is the month of Women in Trades. We actually unleashed earlier today our new Women in Trades logo and some of the work, but we're doing that work. We're trying to figure out this pathway, but we're hoping all districts will kind of say, this is something that we want to be a part of. And I know as a group, I may not be the smartest guy, but I'm pretty sure if we get a lot of smart people around me, we can get this work done. Just two last things. I do have a board member, Dave Petrusko, as I mentioned before. Dave's been at a lot of the board meetings. We just try to make sure there's a presence of one of our board members at the meetings. I don't know, Dave, if you have anything you want to add.
I just want to thank you for sending your youngsters, and thank you for sending Jason. He's a great addition to our board, but the youngsters are outstanding, and keep them coming, please.
And then the last thing I want to add, and I'm happy to answer any questions about anything, is, as I mentioned before, BOCES is nothing but a cooperative of school districts. And the cooperative does not run unless the leaders of those school districts are involved. And that takes time out of the district. Ken is involved in a number of committees. Ken, as a matter of fact, just took leadership of another committee about regionally trying to make sure we can submit information about the updating of the graduation standards. We know this happens once every so many years, and it's a lot of years, and we feel our region has to heavily weigh in and think about what we want for our kids, and there's no one better to do this work than Ken. But also, we do have a health insurance consortium. Brian spends a day a month and helps us with multiple regression formulas and a bunch of other things on setting rates. But it doesn't work. A cooperative school district only works if the school districts are involved and takes them out of the district, and there's extra meetings they have to do. And I just want to thank these gentlemen for the time and effort they really put into those meetings, because otherwise it just doesn't function without them. So I know I went on a little bit longer tonight, but I just wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to talk about things that I hope would be important to you and certainly highlight your kids. And Trina, I are happy to answer any questions that you might have, if you have any.
Questions from the board?
I do, yes. How you doing? I do have a connection with BOCES, Capital Region, so I'm very familiar with a lot of what you're explaining tonight, so thank you for that. One thing with the different pathways to a diploma is not just doing a CTE for my career going forward, but just skills, life skills. Like, I'm going to be a homeowner one day. I may want to build a shed. I may want to understand HVAC so I don't have to, call a professional, that type of thing. Or to have it just for, a job to help foster college, during summer work and stuff like that. So what can we do, or any suggestions for, as Ken was saying, not the stigma of a BOCES education, but to expand it to say, hey, let's learn something else so that we can, if you have room in your schedule, in addition, rather than it just being a career move. So any suggestions with that?
Well, I'm going to ask Trina to hit that first. I think she's got ideas here.
Yeah, I think one of the things is really focusing on changing students' mindset, right, to I can do different things, right? And so, rather than having one pathway, I'm gonna do well in my classes and I'm gonna go to college, right? what am I interested in, right? And exposing students to all types of different interests. You heard me ask one of the students about the tour, because when I spoke to the students, even though they had some interest, right? I know I might be interested in BOCES or I'm interested in construction. It wasn't until they came on the tour to the programs that really solidified their thinking, oh, I really want to do this, right? And so it's a matter of how can we present multiple opportunities for students so that they can start to expand their thinking around what might I be good at, right? That it doesn't always have to be for kids about the outcome, because they don't know what the outcomes are. We have to present them with those opportunities. And so that's what we've been really focusing on, is how can we provide students with just different pathways to say, what might I be good at? What can I try that's new?
So when they go on the tour, they can check out multiple things, not just one?
That's correct, yep. Students visit the programs, they check out multiple programs, and it gives them an opportunity to really explore what they might be interested in. And I think you heard the students talk about, I'm, really focusing on framing, but I'm thinking about real estate too. I'm in construction, but I'm also thinking about welding or engineering or electricity, right? And so we find that when we create that environment for students where they have so many different opportunities and they see different things, they start to expand their thinking in those ways.
I don't know what you folks are doing here. My guess is you're probably on it, but a number of districts have really started to rethink their orientation program with the children even 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So those middle-level technology programs, what you're exposing to them at that point is really critical. But a lot of districts have started really talking about pathway presentations when students are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So by the time they get even to high school, that they've had people come in, or their own staff has talked about explicitly about the programs and what they can expect from the programs. And I'm not sure exactly where you do those or how you do those. But what we've seen in some districts where they really are very explicit about pathways instruction, including these programs, but not limited to these programs, right? Because I know you have an IB pathway, you have an early college pathway, you have traditional pathways. It's that getting kids to think more about long-term, not just a series of courses, but what is your pathway to success. I think that makes a difference with kids and families. And I also think parents don't always know all the data and what the earning potentials are. Because one of the things, and we, Ken mentioned a little bit about stigma, and we always thought that we've rebranded. We've done a lot of things that have helped. We also have kids, we believe there's a BOCES program for every student. But the more information they can have, the more detailed information, the better. And unfortunately, we still live in a spot where our college completion rates in New York at the community college and at the four-year level are not what people might think they are. And I think really having some good discussions with parents, and they're hard discussions to have because the perception is, because a lot of people want their child to go to college, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes they don't realize that if my child graduates and does not have either a pathway and a skill or a college education, this is a tough economy to survive in. So the more of those discussions you have, at the various levels, I'm going to guess, like I said, you're probably on it, but I can't overvalue how important that is to have those discussions, those pathway discussions.
And I think as a district, we also just need to make sure that we are presenting the BOCES has a number of incredibly professional, compelling videos that explain their programs and show their programs to students. And those are things that I think as a district, if we can make sure that we're making available to students, I'll get some of the links from Jim and just send them around to the board members so that you can see them. But that could be something that even starting in the middle school, in their morning announcements or whatever, because they're short, they're a minute and a half or something like that. We can start maybe showing some of those as well, just to get them out there. There's one on the equine program that the BOCES has, and to see the students out there, at a facility, in a horse barn, tending horses, 5:30 in the morning, 6:30, and hearing about the excitement and the energy that they have for those programs. They're again, it's very compelling videos. So that's something that the BOCES has. We just need to make sure that that gets out there.
One thing I know is I don't think this is at all how it works here, but in some districts, they say some of the guidance counselors aren't always up to date on it, and so a parent might ask about a program, and they don't always have the information. Just keeping that guidance staff, making sure they have opportunities to visit the programs, see the programs, know the programs. Obviously, we know that we're not the answer for a lot of kids. You know, there's different pathways and opportunities. We want the guidance counselors to be updated in a lot of different things. But obviously, to the degree that parents and children want to talk about these programs, that they have the knowledge, skill, and ability to talk about them, we know makes a big difference. We hear that all the time. It can't just be, here's some programs if you're interested. That just does not connect kids. And there are some districts, I don't think this is it here, but there are some districts that is something that we challenge. So I'll just lastly say, we could not find a better partner than Ken Slentz. And anything, if I ever ask Ken to do, he's there, no matter what it is. So I appreciate it.
So thank you very much. Jim, you'll absolutely be missed when you leave. Thank you very much for your 12 years of service to the BOCES. And thank you for all the presentation. And if board members, if there's any follow-up questions, et cetera, either you can send them directly to Jim or funnel them through me. I'll help you get the contact information.
Thank you all.
Thank you both very much. Dave, thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you, Dave.
As we're moving to the next part, Jim and I have worked together, gosh, since the late 90s, I think we started, and our paths have woven to intersect on a number of occasions, and I've been in 4 different BOCES. Jim, you've been in at least three that I know of. One of the things that we talk a lot about is getting the kids there. Dr. Parker talked about, and the kids even talked about, when I went on the tour, that is part one of the equation, getting the parents to go on the tour, because remember, the stigma is not necessarily with the kids. It's with the parents who remember what BOCES was like when they were in school. Getting people into those buildings, into those programs, explaining to them that when your child takes this national assessment, it actually can count for one of your Regents exams. All of a sudden, the eyes start to open up. The moms and dads say, a student loan or a job in the trades that can actually foster a college degree. There's just so much work around this and breaking the stigma, but the parents really, and this is where our BOCES does a really nice job with this, getting the parents involved in this. And yes, at the middle level, we have parents that are oriented to these programs as well, with the videos and otherwise. That's really critical. Mrs. Snow knows this in running her programs across town as well. So again, we all have work to do on that. But thank you all again for the time.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's now the time on our agenda for our first public comment. We do have a couple of individuals signed up. They are community members, parents who have spoken a number of times here at our meetings, so I'm not going to have to run through all of our guidance on public speakers. When you have the privilege of the floor, please remember that no individual student information, particular personnel issues should not be discussed. Please direct all your comments to the board as a whole and not to any particular individual. And just come up and state your name and address, please. And first up is Jason Gertler.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Slentz, good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to start off by saying, take these masks off our, oh, sorry. That was last month's speech. My apologies. In all seriousness, I'm happy that we've made it to this point and to see all of your faces. I'm sure that the students and staff were elated to see each other's faces as well. I know that my son had an enormously happy day today at school. Dr. Chaucer, thank you for that. Yeah, so I'm sure the students and staff were elated to see each other's faces as well. It has been a very difficult 2 years. Frustrating, but never hostile. Tonight, I'd actually like to address the community. We've been in a very dark and difficult place for far too long. 2 years, exactly. It's been very divisive, and we all need to come back together as a community to support our children and to help them get back to a normal life in and out of school. Let's stand together as a community and teach our children acceptance. Let them understand that it's okay that their friends choose to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. It's about choice. Bullying others because of their choices, it's not how a community works. We need to be here for each other. We need our kids to be kind, compassionate, and understanding, and we need to set that example as parents. This is how we get back to the old normal. So I say, we lick our wounds, we rise from the ashes, we continue to fight for our children, and we continue to make this community even stronger than it ever has been. I will always be here to help someone. I will always continue to fight for my children, for your children, and for our children. That's how community works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Next speaker, Chris Dubuque.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Chris Dubuque, Kaleen Drive. Hope everybody had a good winter break. I know sometimes for us as parents, it's nice when winter break is over and all the kids come back to school. So it is very good, finally, to see everybody's faces again. I know the presentation we had earlier with the two young individuals that were standing up there and the young doctor that was interviewing them as the presentation was going on, just to see the pride in her face, the smile on her face, and what those two individuals were able to see. I know that means a lot to a young individual. It meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me as an adult if someone smiles at a presentation that I make. So again, this has been a long fight. I know it may at times seem like when we come up here, we can be a little bit hostile. I do understand that. We're parents. We're passionate. We want the best for our children. We want to know that when they're going to school, that they're not dreading going to school because they have to sit in a mask 7.5 hours a day. With that being said, as Mr. Gertler said, it's time to move forward. It absolutely is time to come back together as a community. I wanted to say a brief recognition of the young individuals that were in actually this very room on February 10th that came into school and had actually been here the night of the meeting on the 9th. Two of them saw their parents get up here and with passionate pleas ask for something to be done for the masks to come off. And it was amazing that they were just able to put together a movement of 35 to 40, all the way up to, I think, at one point, 80 young individuals that just wanted to express the ability to smile once again and have their faces be free. I know my daughter was part of that. She came home and she said she hasn't felt that good in a while. It's just a sort of tension was lifted. And that's what they should have. They should have a learning environment where that choice is there. The same way, I was at a Burnt Hills Boston Lake meeting and I saw a parent get up for 12 minutes and speak to the board who was concerned about the masks coming off because of some severe illness she had, and her daughter actually felt like she was part of a group. She had some social-emotional problems, and that mask made her feel like she fit in with other students because they were all wearing a mask. So believe me, we understand both sides. But that's all we're asking is now's the time to move forward as a community. I know Dr. Chaucer is here, and my kids came through her school as well, and I remember the 3 B's: be safe, be kind, and be respectful. I still remember, my kids still remember, and believe me, there's no intent for them to come in here and not be kind or respectful to anyone who exercises the choice to wear a mask. So again, we thank you for all the work that you have done. I know there's been a lot of changes that have been implemented, whether it was Scotty Scoop, or again, just the responses we do get from the board. I can tell you I've been to a lot of board meetings and they don't always go as smoothly. You don't always get a response. And unfortunately, the parents aren't always treated as respectfully just because they choose to exercise a different opinion. So we definitely thank you for that and appreciate all your help and look forward to moving forward with everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Dubuque. That concludes the first public comment period. There will be one later in the meeting. Student government report, we do not have our student government reporters. I know they were involved in the dodgeball tournament, so they may be exhausted. Our superintendent's report starts out with a budget review. Is that correct?
Thank you, Jason. Update number 2 for the board tonight. My portion of it is going to look very familiar. Brian will go into some more detail, and then we'll talk about next steps. You know, I say it every time, we start here as our ultimate reminder of what it is that we're doing. The meaningful diploma piece of it. Every time we move forward, we're making another inroad to this, and we'll talk a little bit about how Jim and Tarina's presentation works into this, because this is ultimately what our kids need in terms of their skills and dispositions to move forward on. This is what all of our program orients towards on behalf of our students. These points of focus, they've been the same for 4 years now, and why is that? Number one, the evidence behind them as the most important 7 elements that a school district can put in place just hasn't changed. The predictability that can then come from having the same 7 points, working diligently on these things. It's no secret that most initiatives in school districts take between 3 and 7 years to get into place and up and running. Now throw in a little bit of interference as we've had over the last 2 years, that timeline can change. Most of our timelines actually haven't changed by years, maybe by some months, but not by years in each of these areas. Again, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. That is the core of what we do, but we also know that our students too often, and perhaps increasingly over the last 2 years, there's obstacles there, and those obstacles come in the form of wellness and behavior and positive behavior. And so we've done a lot of work as a governance team in putting pieces, critical pieces in place to help with that. We still have work to do. Working with personnel, you know, gone are the days where we were getting 200-300 applicants for positions. We still get a good number, but it's not like it used to be. The pools are dwindling across all areas of our operation. The communication piece, one of the biggest challenges, and this is no secret, one of the biggest challenges, and quite frankly, it was the impetus for starting the Scotty Scoop, was to offset the rumor mill that is too quickly generated by reactions through social media. We want our webpage, we want our information to be the first information and the best, most factual information. So we'll continue to evolve in our communications to have those rapid responses, if you will, those more thoughtful responses with the updates, those longer term updates with our newsletter, certainly highlighting the activities of the district through our social media, but this will continue to evolve. And then again, particularly in this environment now, the long-range planning, from facilities to budget to curriculum, that is more critical than it's ever been. So those are the 7 points, our foundation, if you will, that we build off of. In December, I believe it was, we talked to you about what our goals are. And they're simply not going to change because, again, they are now just smaller versions of each of those 7 points as we go through them. When you look at the curriculum that we're continuing to put in place at the elementary level, the framework that we are putting in place at the middle school, utilizing the middle years program from the International Baccalaureate organization, the work that we continue to do to expand the pathways at the high school, this is all predicated on one premise, that if we can start from our earliest learning opportunities to get kids ready, which means they are at or above grade level across all areas, the most important of which is reading, that by the time they get to their senior year, they have the luxury of time. They have time to maybe take a CTE course. They have time to take a college course. They have time to explore options that otherwise, if they're in remediation starting from middle school and on, if they're struggling because they haven't learned those foundational skills that we talked about earlier, that puts them at a deficit in senior year. We want them to try things that they otherwise might not while they're still within our network of care, where they can try something and say, boy, it's not me. When we talk about putting kids on pathways, we're talking about not just not being so naive as to think that they're going to find it in high school. The other part of that equation is we want them to have opportunities to find what they don't want to do, when quite frankly, it's not costing them tuition money to figure that out. Remember, when you look at the three biggest economic drivers, mortgages will always be up here. God willing, if they're not, we have bigger problems. What comes next after mortgages, right? You're always looking at the auto loans. A rapid rising third for the last 10 years, and we're talking about slopes, northeast slopes for mortgage, for vehicles. What's the third one?
Tuition.
Student loans. It's like this. Why are we looking at opportunities to try to reduce student loans for public service? Because it drives the economy or it doesn't. If we can put students on pathways that whether they're training, whether it's college, whatever they may have to pay for, they go into it with a much clearer-eyed approach, knowing what they want to do and don't want to do, we can actually save mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, the students themselves money, and give them every possible opportunity. And again, just a reminder, what do some of those opportunities look like? You have this in your slide deck, and folks in the back, I apologize this is small font, but there's a lot to pack in here, and this will be on our website. All of these pathways that we offer, tying in Jim and Tarina's presentation down in the bottom left corner, career and technical education. Again, this does not have to be a student who says, I want to spend my junior and senior year half the day up at the BOCES campus. We have an increasing number of state-approved programs here where the kids don't have to leave campus, because whether you've broken the stigma or not, asking a 16-year-old to leave their friends for the day, even though they can make new friends north on one of the campuses up there, that's a big lift. That's why we need the parents involved in that. But single courses, a sequence of courses, right up to getting that certification where when you graduate, you have that seal of endorsement, the technical endorsement that says you have completed a sequence of courses and the required exams that then send you off into a career-ready or even a college prep situation. So we continue to add pathways to this chart. SPA Academy, again, this is our first year pilot with that. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from the kids. We've learned a lot from the staff. Mrs. Snow and Dr. Duca continue to refine the program. That will continue next year, but there's still a group of kids that we're missing that we want to keep, again, within our catchment, that because for one reason or another, our daily schedule doesn't work for them. SPA Academy doesn't work for them. So now through, again, another pilot program utilizing federal funding, we'll do a Twilight Academy. These kids will come in later afternoon and go into the evening for their education. Again, parallel in some ways to SPA Academy and taking those lessons learned, but this is a slightly different student that we're talking about. All of these things, bringing GED back onto our campus, making sure that we have a robust and a rigorous summer school program. We don't have that right now. All of this is to make sure that we keep a good handle on our students, know them well, such that we can give them increasing access to all of these programs. The second piece of it, MTSS. This is perhaps the most understated thing we have going right now, because at the end of the day, this is not about Tier 2 or Tier 3 or special education. This is about Tier 1. How do we put in place instruction and instructional supports that keep as many kids as possible in the classroom in Tier 1 instruction? The answer to that, curriculum. Right? And so that's what we have going. Mrs. Skelly will talk a little bit in our upcoming presentation about our MTSS program and how that's working. We'll talk a little bit about those Tier 3 kids, the numbers that we're seeing to drop off, but this is really the engine that makes it work, quite frankly. Again, how do we sustain MTSS? It sounds like it's a simple program. These are the majority of components, but not all of them. That our interventionists, our principals, our classroom teachers, all are working to support this, again, to keep kids back on track for that Tier 1 instruction, because it's a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. Our biggest resource challenge, and I've said it before, is not in fact money, it's time, right? We have 176 days with each of our kids between 4.5 and 5.5 hours of instruction every day. We don't have a lot of time to waste. And so the more efficient that we can be and the more effective that we can be, we're back to having that, meeting that vision for the senior year of giving more and more of our kids greater opportunities before they launch into post-high school. This piece of it, how are we making sure that our adults remain well-trained, that they are oriented to the way that we want them relative to the work that we're doing? How do we make sure that our mentor programs are really strong, that those orientation that the team really worked hard on last year to launch? How do we make sure that those are really evidence-aligned and strong in meeting the needs of our team? When we look, for example, at teacher and administrator evaluation, is that the best way to make sure that we're improving people? And our conclusion was the way that we were doing it, the answer is no. There's a more efficient way that we can do it. And so we're one of only a handful of districts in the state that actually have a variance for APPR on how we're doing it, because we're using some of that gained time to try to improve the work that we're doing to give people the opportunity to consistently improve. There is a challenge here, and that sometimes the message is received wrongly, in that if we're asking you to improve, there must be something wrong. Remember, time is our biggest challenge. If we can get you 1% better tomorrow than you were today, the benefit goes directly to the students. And so constantly trying to get better at what we do, meaning more efficient and more effective so that we have better outcomes for our kids. Remember, we're back to that senior year vision. Collective bargaining, we're very fortunate right now of the contracts that we have within the district. All of them are settled, so those are budgeted for appropriately. This one, again, the facilities piece of it, the long-range planning for this, making sure that, again, as we start to look forward to our next larger capital project, all of which you have information on in the various documents that we've sent, that we're being smart about how we're doing that in terms of matching it with long-range program, how we're making sure that we finance this in such a way that we don't create mountains, cliffs, and valleys, if you will, in our funding. We want to be as consistent as possible, because if we have consistency there, if we're driving aid through BOCES, through transportation, through any of the thoughtful ways that we can bring consistency to our finances, any additional money, back to the program, back to curriculum, back to instruction, back to assessment, where it should go. And again, this one continues to be a challenge. I alluded to this before, but making sure that our staffing structure is also as efficient and effective. If you're just going for efficiency, that does not work. It has to be and. We want to be efficient with our time and our structure and be as effective as we can possibly be, which means we have to be willing to train people. One thing here, one of our challenges, if I can go, there we go. One of the challenges, the gift of the millions of dollars of federal funding, a portion of which we have spent on staff, one of the challenges is that as we go forward and determine getting beyond COVID, how many of those positions are we going to keep because they've proven advantageous to kids well beyond COVID? How many of them will be phased out? How many of them are occupied by people that will actually fill in when we have retirements? Next year, we're anticipating a fairly good size number of staff who will be retiring. Some of these folks will roll off into those positions. But this is something that Brian and I are working on, his team is working on in particular, on how we make sure, again, that we're not creating funding cliffs for those federal funds. By the way, again, we get this question probably once a week. All of our federal allocations and our spending plans are on the district website. Under district, go to financial information. You're 3 clicks in to finding all of that information. again, you've seen this before, the balance of what we're offering for program against what we know and believe and know that the taxpaying public can support for us, finding that balance is really, really critical. Where we're asking for more, we know we have to justify that increasingly so compared to what we've done in the past. Again, I talk about maximizing aidable services and continue, even though we've benefited greatly the last 2 years, making sure that the state stays true to their obligation to us under the foundation aid formula. Let's talk about what this looks like in nuts and bolts terms, Brian.
So tonight, the section of the budget that I'm going to present is called General Support. It's not a great descriptive name, but I've listed underneath there each of the sections of the budget that it includes. It starts with the Board of Education and goes all the way through all the offices, central offices, all the consultants and contractors that we have, such as auditors and bankers and attorneys. And as an organization the size that we have, you can imagine that that's a lot of folks and a lot of services. The two that I'm going to focus on is going to be central data management and facilities. But let's just take a look at this at a little more defined level. Central offices are literally, it's very similar when you think of the district office. It's the superintendent, it's the board, it's my office, it's human resources, it's all of that. That's the first line. And that is, you know, literally is central to everything that happens in the sense that even the directors, everybody are there, and that's, you know, kind of the, I want to say brain trust, but maybe that's a little too of my own.
Flattering.
Flattering, but that's where it is. Moving on, there's facilities, and I'm going to talk about that in a second in more detail, and finally, district services, and that's more of the general things that affect all parts of the budget. And all programs. Again, these titles in these sections come from the state. There's a chart of accounts. I realize it's not very descriptive, but we do need to follow this as we build the budget because everything we do has to be given to the state in the format that they want it. So really a big part of what we've been doing in the last 6 months, but it started a few years ago, is IT support services. Certainly with COVID, the change has been dramatic in the remote services that we provide and the equipment we provide. 3-4 years ago, we might have had less than 1,000 Chromebooks. We now have over 6,400 Chromebooks. And that's all being supported by essentially the same number of people that we had before. And that's difficult. The other side of that, as far as budgeting is concerned, is that that equipment breaks. So where we in the past have only needed an equipment, replacement and repair budget of a few, $5,000–$10,000, this thing is creeping up to $20,000–$30,000, and that's just indicative of anything where you go from 1,100–1,200 units of something to over 6,000 units. We still have 1,200 desktops. That's still the core of what teachers and all of the office staff use, is they start with that desktop, and that goes to, is connected to the network, but also to their smart board and to all the things that they present are there. So that's very important. And then the things that people don't think about, there's dozens of server closets, there's 125 switches, there's just a huge amount of equipment. All of that has physical and electronic security issues that we have to address. So everyone knows about ransomware and what's going on. That is another piece of this budget, in that all the systems that we're putting in place to protect the district all go through this part of the budget. I put down at the bottom here, I said, out of that total increase, if you go back, the whole total increase for that central offices is $236,000. But $163,000 of it is just for the IT services. And that's what's happening right now as we kind of deal with the change over the last 2 years of how many devices and how much equipment is out there in students' hands, and how teachers need more equipment, and more sophisticated equipment in their classrooms to deal with that, and then the security issues related to everything from our email to, you know, our back-end accounts and servers and all of our backups, all right? Those are huge, and it's a part of all this. We have some very good people. One of the people on our staff is an excellent security person, but in addition to that, included in this budget is that we go out and we have standing contracts, and you guys have approved them. They're standing contracts so that if we need some kind of expertise in one particular area, we can pick up the phone and call them. It's kind of like having an attorney on retainer in that we've got the agreement in place, doesn't cost us anything, but the point we need them, we can call them. And finally, another piece of what goes into this and what we've been doing is all of the testing and third-party consulting on our security. So in the fall here, we hired, you probably heard of the company Palo Alto. They were in here with their security testing division, and they went through all of our systems. We held tabletops exercises where we said, okay, this is what's happened, now everybody react. And we went through all that. Very, very interesting. And very insightful and very difficult, complex. A piece of this too is that's not in here but is in other parts of the budget, for example, is the insurance that we now purchase. So we have an extensive cyber liability policy that we started about 3 or 4 years ago. 2 years ago, it was $8,000. It's now $16,000 last year. It's going to probably be $32,000 to $60,000 as we go through because everybody's experiencing this. The cost of the insurance is jumping dramatically, but the coverage is excellent that we have. We were able to, and it's important to understand that some school districts will go and apply for this insurance, and they will be rejected. And the reason for that is that they don't have the security in place to qualify for the policy. Very, very important thing, and it's been happening all over the capital region that schools are being rejected for this. We have the security in place, we can prove it, and we've got the policy, and we've had for 3 years now. So another part of the budget, but nevertheless an implication of all the IT issues that we're facing as a school district. Facilities. Over the last, 12 years, we've done a lot of projects. I've talked about that, and it's really paying off in terms of, obviously the facilities that we have to provide instruction. We talked about that tonight, and Jim was speaking of that for BOCES and how important it is for them to adjust their facilities to address what they need for instruction. Well, we've done that, and we're in great shape there. And in addition to that, though, it's also bringing down our costs. As you can see right here, we've actually got a significant decrease in our maintenance costs because we're not needing to do the same level of maintenance that we did when the buildings were older and not renovated. Now, over time, everything changes, and so as we go on, that maintenance budget will start to increase as the buildings get older again. But right now, we've basically, by the end of this summer, we'll have renovated every facility in the district except for the district office. And that's fantastic. It both impacts positively instruction, but it also impacts the budget in terms of this. Notice down here, the district office was built in 1900. Gordon Creek was built in 2013. That's the range of the buildings that we deal with. It's quite remarkable because the systems and the physical envelope of the buildings is so different. And our maintenance guys need to understand that and deal with it. Obviously, the subsystems like HVAC and electrical systems and plumbing systems have been all updated, but still, none of them are on the same year and the same path of where they are. So it's complex, but the good news is that number has gone down. Same thing with building security. We spent quite a bit of money on this is physical security. As you know, every entrance now over the last 5 years has been converted and has a very secure vestibule entrance with protection for the people involved in the receptionist, but also ways to trap and hold people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to talk about that in too much detail for obvious reasons, but now we don't need as much there as we had before because it's in place and the structures are there. So good news there. So this this section of the budget is actually going down. That's pretty amazing. I don't remember the last time that the whole section of this went down. Pieces of it would go down, but overall, we're in good shape. Operations is impacted, last year there was a large increase in operations, but it had to do, when I say last year, that's the year that we're in fiscally, had to do with COVID and all of the cleaning equipment and supplies and materials and everything that we needed. That impacted that budget. So it's only up a little bit this year, 2%, and mostly that's just salaries associated with the staff. We do still struggle there for staffing. I looked the other day, and I think we're down 4 positions where people that are open positions that we cannot fill. We've tried repeatedly. They don't get filled. We use substitutes and cross and overtime and crossing schedules, et cetera, to try and deal with that. But that's a piece of the environment and the economy that we're in right now. It's tough to get folks. So that lays out all those pieces. I just want to go back then and just show this again. Those are the total is 2.3%, well below inflation. These estimates are for next year. I mean, they don't even take effect until July. Hopefully we're right, but I think that we're going to be in good condition. But again, you can see, this number here includes that $163,000 for IT, and that's what's really driving this. And it's good that we're able to save money here so that we can pay for the IT services that we need going forward. Any questions on that? Okay.
Just a comment, and you can help me with the exact numbers, but I just want to make sure everyone understands and get on the recording here that when you speak of general support in the central offices and talk about the administration and the Board of Education, just want to make sure, reiterate that the Board of Education is an unpaid position. The Board of Education receives no pay from the district in any way, shape, or form. The budget line for the board, if I remember correctly, is less than $5,000, is
Yeah,
a couple of $1,000s,
Yep.
and it's meant for paying for attendance at like the Saratoga County School Boards Association dinner, which is about $30 a pop, and potentially attendance at the state convention of the New York School Boards Association or something like that. That is the sum total. So out of the 1.6 million there, the board line is a couple of $1,000.
So you know your budget well, because that's exactly right. The board's line is about $4,500. It's the money in there for like a couple people each year to attend the state conference, and all the other things associated with training that you're required to take, et cetera. That's it. I've seen board lines in the $30,000, $40,000 range for school districts our size in the capital region. That's not this board. Well, they do a lot more stuff. I don't know what it is exactly. But you guys, yes, this is a small number for this group, and that's all there is to it. So you're exactly correct.
Thank you.
One question, I think, was the earlier part of the presentation, and for my educational acronyms, APPR. What is
Annual
it?
Professional Performance Review, Teacher and Principal Evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, there you go, sir.
Thank you very much. There was a time where I could change this from the desk, but I can't see that well anymore, so bear with me for just a moment, and now we're up to it. So just over 24 hours ago, guidance and an associated FAQ came out from New York State relative to, in addition to, or perhaps as a result of, eliminating the mask mandate, asterisk, kind of, there's a lot of questions that came out of this relative to our other mitigation strategies. So tonight I'm just going to take you through some of the highlights of this. We're still going through those 2 documents to make sure that we have a full understanding of what's intended and what's not intended, quite frankly. We had a meeting first thing this morning with regional superintendents, with Jim, going through the initial interpretation. The FAQ that we put out yesterday, you have a revised version of that in your folders. Our district planning team has the revised version of it. We'll continue to work on and refine that. When you look at that in your folder, anything new is highlighted in yellow. Anything that's still confusing is highlighted in green, but we'll continue to work through that. So everyone, I think, is keenly aware of the first item on this. What also happened very quietly yesterday, the emergency regulation to extend the authority for the Commissioner of Health to require that all unvaccinated staff within a school district be tested weekly. That was extended through the end of May, and so we have around 100 people that still are tested weekly. We've changed our approach to that. We were utilizing Adirondack Health and Wellness to come with their team a number of days a week. We've now streamlined that, so we're now using the, effective today, as a matter of fact, we're using the County Department of Health, no cost. Their staff comes, all of our folks go to one central location to be tested. They actually can test outside of here, but it still has to meet the requirements within the commissioner's determination on that. Again, as noted, the new guidance came out last night. There's a couple of critical points on this. Masks are actually still required for individuals who test positive, and because they meet the criteria for returning after day 5, they have to be masked on days 6 through 10. That is the only must in the entirety of the guidance in the FAQ. There's a number of other recommendations, strongly encouraged, should. Wayne and I were talking before. There seems to be an inordinate number of shoulds in there. One of the musts, or the only must, as I said, is related to days 6 through 10. Targeted contact tracing. We have chosen to still do that because if you have a positive case in a situation in one of our special education classrooms, in where you have a lot of students in close contact, we want to know that, and we want families to know that as quickly as possible. And quite frankly, Sharon is so good at this that this is just something that we want to make sure that we continue to have in place. From there, then there's a set of recommendations that attach to that if you've been exposed. The guidance is very clear. Because you've been exposed no longer requires you to be precluded. It's recommended, and you should wear a mask for 10 days, and you should test at least twice within a 5-day period, but it's not required. So this is something that we'll continue to offer masks for students who are exposed, for anyone who chooses it. We'll continue to offer the testing. We'll continue to be in contact with moms and dads. You know, your son or daughter is in the nurse's office, where we will ask them to wear a mask if they present with symptoms. We can't make them, but we're going to ask them to do that. We will ask moms and dads, if you're comfortable with it, we will test them here. If they test negative and they're and they're feeling well enough to stay in school, they can stay. Or if you go home and then follow up, seeing how the symptoms evolve, then a new set of the directions fall into place. The current mitigation measures, everything is staying in place right now. Some of that will change based on the guidance, but we want to make sure that we're right about it, because we don't want to make a change and then have to change back if our interpretation is wrong. So what will be very helpful in this regard, on Friday we have a conversation with our county health commissioner in hopes of getting some clarification on some of these things. Positive cases continue. It's a little bit of a, just because of the way that we have to report, when you look at our current page, it looks like there's 18 positive cases this week. There's not, there's only 5. 13 of them were from the week before, but we have to report them on Monday. So we had that big jump, and quite frankly, by big jump, we mean 13 reported cases over the entirety of that week. This, as you've heard me say before, this is becoming a less meaningful number to us because of the fact that so much of this depends on self-reporting. Okay? And then staffing shortages. That it says summary of changes. That hasn't changed, particularly with our bus drivers. That continues to be a challenge. So again, in summary form, masking, it's always required only on days 6 through 10 for a student or staff member who has tested positive and is able to return because their symptoms have diminished, they're fever-free for a period of 24 hours without associated medicine, fever-reducing medicine. Again, recommended but not required for individuals who are considered a close contact, or there's a new wrinkle in this, you are exposed or potentially exposed, and we have definitions within the new guidance on that. Again, this is recommended, certainly recommended for symptomatic students, as I suggested before, until we can rule out that they test positive. And then no requirement for anyone else. Today, what we saw really quite a variety across the schools. 3 of our schools were somewhere near a third. Another school had very, very few, and the other 2 were somewhere in between that. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out over the next couple of days. This is new, based on what the CDC put out last Friday. This is the community burden levels. It does not mean that the community transmission levels went away. You have a slide deck from the CDC within your COVID folder that marks out the difference between this approach. Essentially, it's a change in methodology, right? And so you hear the quips, oh my gosh, you know, we're inundated with COVID and now we're not. No, we're measuring it differently, and it's measured across 3 different areas in terms of number of cases, number of hospitalizations, number of cases per 100,000. Those are the 3 new metrics that give us this community burden level. Saratoga is low, classified as low now, still, since they put that out. And for this next one, actually it'll be another slide coming up. You'll see that it looks like we're still on a very good path to stay that way. Again, moving forward, what are we going to continue to do to keep us on this pathway to normalcy? Making vaccines available. We've seen a slight increase in vaccinations over the last couple of weeks within Saratoga County and certainly within our own numbers. Providing masks, providing testing, making sure the old rule is there. If you're not feeling well, please stay home and get yourself back to good wellness. The etiquette, the hand washing, the coughing, et cetera, all of that still plays true, and then continuing our communication. So this is what I was referring to. This is the status as of yesterday in all of these different topic areas. When you look at the number of cases decreasing, all the things that you want to decrease, all the measures are decreasing. All the pieces that you want to be increasing, such as vaccination, they're all increasing. That keeps us on a very good track to stay within that low community burden. We will find out, I suspect on Friday in our call with the health commissioner, what happens if this starts to reverse once the masks are off, if we start to see a spread or an increase and we go back to medium, for example, the medium community burden. Okay, I expect very little will change. But what about now if we have to go to high? The recommendation is that any areas that have a community burden being at the high level, again, it's a recommendation, that they go back to universal masking. We'll get more on that from our health commissioner on Friday. So next steps, we'll continue to review. We have a 23-member district-wide planning committee. We met yesterday. The meeting wasn't terribly substantive, quite frankly, because we were waiting for the guidance. So we went through our framework that's been updated. We went through the FAQ, as I suggested. The revised version of that is now back with the committee. Tomorrow, we'll update the framework based on this new guidance. We'll put that in your folder. We'll put it in the district-wide planning team folder, and then that group will reassemble next week once we hear from the health commissioner. Continuing to monitor the wellness of students and staff. Again, today was a big day, but it was a day that caused a lot of anxiety. And for students and staff who are already anxious by nature, today was a test. For sure. So we'll talk a little bit in a minute about how we're going to continue to support that. Again, making sure that we continue our communication on any changes as well. You've seen this slide before, but we are very fortunate that the board has seen the rationale for improving and increasing our mental health staff across the district. Again, having counselors in every elementary building. In Wood Road, we have two of our buildings, Milton Terrace and Wood Road, have the school readiness program with Primary Project, led in the first instance by the school counselor, but also supported by very able teaching assistants. Making sure that we continue to have the right level of social workers in the building, psychologists. One of our bigger challenges, though, quite frankly, is that the vast majority of those folks are obligated to our special education students. And so with our federal funding, our state level funding, we're actually paying for another full-time social worker that we intend to put into one of our, put into our largest elementary school, our Title I school, to again expand those services for non-special education students. We want to make sure that not only are we supporting our general education students who are in perhaps a tier 3 situation with their behavior, but we also have a good connection to our families, giving then the ability for the school counselor, for the psychologist, for the social worker to really focus on fewer areas to be able to do well. And then our resources have been updated. The links should be available shortly if they're not already for the new guidance that's out. Those are the only remaining pieces that we'll have here. So more to come. Any questions on this at this point? Law?
Yes, Ken. So I know, I think your second bullet point was testing of unvaccinated staff still has to go through. What was the agency that is mandating that?
That's actually the New York State Department of Health.
Department of Health?
Yep.
And is there any leeway in the district being able to, I mean, is it a mandate that we have to follow that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
No different than when, it's parallel to the masking mandate when that was in place.
Right.
It's based on emergency regulations that have been passed through the State Administrative Procedure Act. Again, that was just renewed yesterday, and so that mandate goes through the end of May.
All right, so we're not waiting on any clarification on that? It's
very clear.
It's very clear?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Switch over to our last presentation.
I promise. Thank you so much. I want to honor your sleep schedule and but we have some good news to share. First, it's good to see everybody again.
Good evening.
Good evening.
No, that's not it. No, this one. It's over there, I'm sorry. So as we start to look at this, we've had conversations here a couple of times that the board has said, boy, it would be nice to start to see some data around this. We're focusing just on reading tonight. We'll come back to you regarding math at another time. But again, this is, I think it's important to understand that the reading piece of it is not just a philosophy, right? It's not just the opinion of the superintendent. We have just loads and loads of data that says if the children cannot read at or above grade level in every year of their education, that vision that we have for senior year, it's gone, right? The likelihood, the trajectories that our children will be on are as limited as their reading ability is. Full stop. Right? This is why we put so much effort on this. And I want to make clear, and I said it one time before, unfortunately, there is sometimes a perception when you bring about a large change that everything that was done heretofore must have been wrong or bad. That is not the case at all. I go back to what I said before. 4 years ago, when I was first brought on by the then board, it was very clear what my task was, and that was to really focus on curriculum and make the necessary revisions to really get us on a good track. And the one thing that stuck out to us was being kind of stuck at this 51% proficiency really across any of our measures. So while our reading approach was working for some kids, in some cases a number of kids, it wasn't working as well as it needed to for enough kids. So this is where we go back to this notion of time. Within the very limited time that we have, can we be more efficient and more effective in how we teach our children to read? Which means they are meeting grade level standards or above, which means that if they're doing that, they spend less time or have less of a chance of going into remediation, which might be tier 2, it might be tier 3, and if that's not working, they may actually be referred to special education. Right? So for each day that we are not getting these kids on track, and there's 3 pillars to this that we talk a lot about, in very explicit, intentional, and systematic ways. Those 3 things are really what the fight is against that limited time. Right? That's what our program is designed to really serve, that explicit teaching, very intentional teaching to what we know works best and most effective and most efficiently to get our children to read. So again, that's the initial premise of it. Kathleen, let's talk about some of the components.
And
of
I'm
it.
sorry, just also for background information, you know, math now is reading, right? You're reading problems. Science now is reading problems. So when our students get to high school, the reading piece of it absolutely affects all of those content areas. And the other piece is with our 4 elementary schools feeding into our middle school, having the consistent program across all of the 4 elementary schools means that the students come to the middle school with the same background, with the same foundation, which was not the case prior to the implementation of this program.
And Jason, it's interesting that you bring that up because before this evening's meeting, we're doing a PLC at the secondary level to address just those concerns, and it's many content areas coming together to address the concerns of our secondary readers and giving them access to the knowledge in science, the knowledge in social studies. So we are working on all levels, and we're very hopeful, and the data I'm going to share with you this evening, that the work, the foundational work we're doing is having a significant impact. So we've had the good fortune of spending some time together earlier this year, so you're familiar with our high-quality curriculum choices. Tonight I want to talk to you about how we do our checkups. It's very common for us to go to the doctor and have diagnostics done to check on our health, our blood pressure, they check our eyesight, they check our weight, we don't like that sometimes. With children, they check their height. Those are all of those variables that you check in to make sure that your health is on track. We do the same thing academically with reading and with math, and tonight I want to share with you what diagnostic tools we check in on to make sure our readers are on track. We deliver benchmark assessments, and think of them, you know, I know assessment, sometimes people cringe a little and they think test, but these assessments are simply that. They're diagnostic, and we're checking in on the health of our readers. For our entire population, we do benchmark assessments at the beginning of the year in September. We just completed a cycle that was mid-January through February, and then we will take another pulse in June to see the product of the full year of instruction. The tools that we use, iReady and Dibbles, are 2 of our primary tools. iReady is a diagnostic tool that takes into account the entire picture of the reader, not just foundational skills, but also their capacity with vocabulary and comprehension, which is critical because the differential with Dibbles is Dibbles really fine-tunes into that area of very specific foundational reading skills, not comprehension necessarily. So we can be very intentional with the information that we gain from Dibbles to be very precise if a student needs support in an area of reading.
Kathleen, let me talk just
Sure.
a second about iReady. Again, the stigma, if you will, around testing is very real, right? And when we look at iReady, boy, we're spending this money, we're looking at these assessments. Why don't we spend time just writing our own assessments? We as teachers have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
If you stand in a room of 500 educators and ask them to raise their hand if they've taken a course in psychometrics, right? The course on how to build tests and why you build tests the way that you do, you will get, and it doesn't matter what district you're in, you will get a single number of hands that are raised. We are not trained to write tests as educators. people who build these tests, iReady in particular, this group has some of the smartest psychometricians in the country, right? And I had the good fortune to work with a number of them when I was at the State Education Department. The way that you build a single question on a test is not to sit down, pencil and paper, and say, all right, what do I really want the kids to think about and know? It goes through so many iterations. High school math teachers tend to know a lot about this, right?
It's true, yeah.
It goes through a number of iterations, the type of language that's used to make sure there's no bias in there, the stem of it, how do you introduce the question to the child? It's tested and retested. Sometimes the questions are very high intentionally. We want to see how many kids can actually get to that level. It's meant to segregate kids out. There is so much intention around this and training that goes into writing a really good test question. And why do I tell you this? Because this data that comes from a very, and Kathleen will use this phrase a lot, the valid and reliable tests that we put in place tell you that the data means something, right? It's not a guess, it's not a maybe, it tells you what we need to know. Back to that efficiency and effectiveness piece of it.
To add to Ken's comment, we have these curriculum products, but these assessments are outside of the curriculum products. So it has further validity because we're measuring the transfer of the skill, and that's really important. We can make a nice bundle and say, here's our curriculum, we test within our curriculum and everybody's successful, but it's really critical to have an external measure to really make sure that we're achieving those results, and we do so here. Additionally, when students are not at that healthiness that we need them to be at as a reader, we have additional screeners that we use to peel back those layers and problem solve. Because of the importance of time and the value, we attempt to be as intentional and precise as we can be with the needs of our readers. And that consistency across all of our programming and everybody knowing what tools to use and how to implement them to maximize our outcomes for our students has had a significant impact. So let's take a look at what we're gonna see. I apologize that my graphics are in reverse. It's just the way that the two tools are presented. I'm gonna take you through a snapshot of every grade level at the district, but I wanna spend time in kindergarten because I wanna go over the features of the graphic.
And Kathleen, as we do this, just an acronym check, beginning of year and middle of year at the top title.
Absolutely. So when you look at iReady, this was the first assessment that we did in September. And keep in mind, when our little kindergartners come to us, some have had the benefit of universal pre-K or a nursery school, but many of them have just enjoyed childhood and done all the right things of playing and learning how to get along with others. And so when they first get to us, sometimes it's very foundational what their knowledge base is. So actually, we're always thrilled when we don't see any red there. So what you have here is when you look at those red quotients, that's when a child is 2 grade levels below in performance. Yellow indicates 1 or slightly below. And then if they are this green, they're on grade level. And then the green with the variegation is above grade level. Okay, so as we look through this most recent was just administered. And if you'll notice, when we started out, we went from 80 who were below grade level in terms of the expectations for kindergarten. And at mid-year, that number has already dropped to 32%, from 80 to 32. And then those kiddos that were at grade level has gone from 16% to 36. So we had 16% of our kindergartners when we first tested come to us with some ready skills. At this point, we have 36. And then when we look at this number, which is very impressive, I do get excited about data. I love education, but it's nice when what we know is going well, we can demonstrate is actually going well. So when you look at this, we had 4% of our newest students exceeding the kindergarten level expectation, and now we're up to 32% with that number. So that is the iReady diagnostic. Then when you come down here to Dibbles, so notice no red here. When you come down to Dibbles, this is the one where we dig in a little deeper because we want to make sure that the foundational skills for our readers, their phonemic awareness, their ability to decode, and their ability to be automatic and fluent are strong. Those things are foundational to success for comprehension. And in order to do that, we do this secondary assessment, and you'll notice that you're gonna see more red in the Dibbles because we're really looking for specific skill areas in which we need to hone in with our students. But you're gonna see the same story, but remember how I said we have to keep an eye on how the graphic is. In this one, the beginning of the year assessment is the top one, and this is the one that was just given. So if you look at the growth piece, blue in this case is above grade level. So in this measurement of foundational reading skills, we started the year with 38 kindergartners above grade level, and we're now to 65. And then at grade level for those foundational skills, 44 to 85. So are you comfortable with the explanations and what we're seeing on progressions? So Ken, is there anything else you'd like to add before I take folks through our grade level achievements?
Yeah, we talked about really the three pillars being, explicit, intentional, and systematic around this. Keep in mind, you have our two most important foundational documents for this. You have the blueprint for literacy that you have within your folders that we've stuck very closely to over the 3 years of implementation. You also have the timeline for implementation. Remember what I said before, most initiatives fall somewhere within that 3 to 7 year range to get them up and going effectively. We're in year 3 of a 5-year implementation plan. So each of the steps are spelled out within that. Given that we've had almost 2 full years of interruption on that plan, and what kindergarten teachers in particular have had to deal with so many kids, even coming out of those formalized structures of UPK, which have themselves been interrupted, holy cow is a great explanation on this, right?
Sure, we can use that one. Absolutely.
It's a technical term.
It's a technical term. I want to be careful with my acronyms, so please call me out if I miss something. I get a little carried away. All right, so let's take a look at first grade. Again, one of the pieces to initially look is just the progression of color. So down here, when we started out with first grade, we had a really broad spectrum of yellow and we had some red. When we look at their most recent, everything's trending in the right direction and we're seeing really good growth. This one is particularly exciting when we see 7% above grade level going to 30% just at the mid-year point for our first graders, which is super exciting. The other piece that I want to draw attention to over here is we're down to 0% on this scale of being significantly below grade level. So that is a good growth measure. The other piece is here, looking at going from 49 to 75, you want to see, obviously, the distribution trending towards the green and the blue. And when we met last week, we were standing around the table and we're just like, look at this. This is so exciting because, it has been a tough couple of years. And we do worry about our kids. And it feels good to know our staff is working very hard to keep this stability in instruction. And to see this return on their work and the family's work and the students' work is very rewarding. Second grade, you'll notice we're seeing the same trends. Do you mind if I do a little chat about second grade?
Please.
Because our second graders were kindergartners when school shut down on March 13th of that year. And this is one group we've been watching very closely because that foundational year and all that work, there's a lot of growth in kindergarten in that spring term because school's now familiar, learning is exciting and comfortable, and they're in the rhythm of that. And that was cut short for those kiddos. So we've been tracking this cohort very closely. And I have to tell you, you're gonna see how the jump there isn't as, significant, but we have 68 second graders above grade level at this point and 71 who are proficient. And we keep moving these lines, which is good. For here, we went from 90 to 64. When you think about second grade, this is where there's going to be a shift. At the end of second grade, we hope our kids have their phonics, their decoding toolbox, well built, so that when they shift into third grade, they're really gonna be able to start expanding into multisyllabic work and increasing their comprehension. So this is a really pivotal year. Dr. Chaucer and Mrs. Johnson are back there, and we just had our cycle meetings, and looking at the second grade group, we can say that we were all feeling very positive after the cycle meetings. And when you look at the kiddos down here, we have very precise and intensive intervention plans that all of those students are in and achieving solid rate of improvement. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Third grade, again, we're seeing the trends moving with our students. Now, our third grade students didn't have the new curriculum as kindergartners. So this is a neat, when we talk about data geeks and implementation and different things like this is another cohort that's of great interest to me, because that foundational piece with this new curriculum wasn't their first year experience, but we're looking at the growth they're achieving in that 3-year cycle. And next year, when we see those third graders, they will have had the full complement of this curriculum from kindergarten through. So we'll hold on to this and bring it back to show you the comparison of what we're seeing of that progression.
One of the things when we talk about the intentionality of the program, we all know, and maybe some of us, we're fortunate to be good readers out of the gate. Maybe our moms and dads or caregivers spend a lot of time with us reading, and we seem to pick it up. One of the things that our approach does, it does not assume that that child is a good reader.
Yes.
It assumes that they can read right now, but what we want to make sure is that as they get particularly into third grade and the reading starts to become more difficult and the pictures go away, they have those solid foundational skills. So we will occasionally hear, oh, this is kind of, and you'll hear in some of the larger media, the phonics is kind of quote unquote baby work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that might be perceived, but imagine building your foundation and you look at the house and you say, oh my gosh, the second floor is fantastic. And you don't take time to look at the foundation only to find out that you've got radon, you've got water leaks, you've got all of these problems, there's no drainage there, and all of a sudden the second floor starts to look less attractive as the house gets older, right? And so this is something that we really fight arduously against, to make sure that every one of our children has that foundation of phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency, because guess what happens by the time they get into secondary? You know what the biggest weakness is of our secondary readers? Phonemic awareness, right? So we're guaranteeing them, every single one of them, that they are getting a strong regimen of phonemic awareness and phonics.
Yes, Katie.
I as a parent feel this way, but I'm curious if this is intentional, that the jump between second and third grade is astronomical.
So I'm going to tell you, prior to the implementation of this curriculum, I definitely always felt that as a literacy educator, that there was just almost a complete stop of the explicit teaching of foundational skills and an assumption that every child could read, and we were just going to jump into higher order comprehension. And this program eases into that. So our curriculum honors some review of those second grade foundations and eases into multisyllabic work, and it repeats the patterns of the basic phonics. So those kids have more foundational elements to anchor in. But historically, absolutely, and that's where we would see all of these problems crop up all of a sudden. And as a secondary teacher, I spent 20 years at secondary. When I would have 11th grade students with reading difficulties, it felt as if they stopped at third grade. Like their reading capacity had just kind of been shelved in terms of growing them as readers, because if they weren't there, we then just compensated for them not being able to read and put different pieces into place, but never gave them that independence.
And by compensated, 4 years ago, 33% of our incoming sixth graders were in AIS. So.
Yeah. So, and that's, you know,
That is unfortunate, but interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. And when we, you know, in this age of talking about equity and access, this is one of those foundational pieces, as
Absolutely.
Ken had said, and as Jason had said, giving them as much opportunity as they can have as they progress in their schooling. Okay, I promise, 3 more minutes, because this is so unfair to you guys. I should have brought coffee or lattes or something. Okay. The one thing I want to point out to you here, see this lovely 38 plus 35. Did you hear Ken's comment on 51%? You know, when we got here, that was that proficiency rate. This is mid-year, and that's where we already are. And that's a feel-good piece, especially at the 3rd grade level. I did not pay Katie to mention that about 3rd grade, I promise. But that,
I found their spelling tests to be the most
There's
difficult.
no compensation for board members.
and actually, they are, but you know what's neat about those spelling tests is they're based in patterns, and they're very intentional about teaching the student patterns, so it's not memorization. And sometimes you know, it takes a little time to grab those patterns, for sure. So let's take a look at 4th grade. Again, we're seeing, whoops, sorry guys. We're seeing good patterns and good trends. Look at this. Guys, do you see 42 to 140? Like, I was like, let's break out the champagne on this one, because this is 4th grade, and the further you get up the further you go up in your grade levels as a learner, the more challenging it is to close those gaps and to see that growth. This one is particularly very exciting, from 62 to 26. We're working very hard on these kiddos, but keep in mind that also includes our kiddos with IEP and special needs, and we're seeing some great growth. I don't want to haul Nancy up here, but we just celebrated some great growth with our 15 to 1 students actually achieving grade level status in some areas. So very exciting on that one.
And just an asterisk, remember when Nancy presented earlier this year, what special education means, right? It's specially designed instruction relative to the general education curriculum.
All righty. So here is our broad view of 5th grade. And 5th grade we're watching keenly because in our IB work, and I spent today working with Math 7, building units, and it was a very productive and wonderful day. But this literacy piece comes up often. So we're looking this year at our 5th grade across the grade levels across the district, because we want to look at those transition points and supporting kids in those transitions and maintaining that success so that they can flourish in the next level. So let's take a deeper dive real quick into, you guys have seen my graphic before. We are blessed in our district because grades 2 through 5, every child receives some level of tier 2 intervention, and I really shouldn't even call it intervention, it's differentiation. So our kiddos who are blue and green, they continue to seek out and are in groups that are reading more sophisticated text and exploring deeper comprehension and vocabulary. So we continue to accelerate. And when you saw that growth of the blue, we are seeing the positive impact of continuing to push our students who are excelling in that direction as we support our learners who need more foundational work to grow them to grade level.
And to what Kathleen is talking about, the differentiation piece of it in the what I need now team or the win time that we put in, that's actually explicit within our schedule. And we hold teachers to that because I can tell you as a former elementary teacher, when you get on a roll with a social studies lesson or in my case math, it's like, you know what? We'll skip reading today. We'll go to that tomorrow because I'm loving as the adult how the things are progressing. But what I was actually doing was a disservice to the children who actually needed effective reading instruction. And for kids who perhaps were at the lower end that needed that pull up, and the kids at the upper end that really needed that continued push. So that's why the very explicit piece, the intentional piece, that starts with, again, our blueprint, that is, and you'll see that within the graphics that we have, a very structured schedule for how to do this. Now, that sounds a little bit like we're dealing with automatons and we're not letting children have fun. Go watch them read. Right? And the quality of literature that they're reading and how the teachers are bringing the literature to life. It's something special to see.
I think one of the best carryovers was I was outside of Malta and one of the bus drivers, had said, "Hello, could you tell me a little bit more about this magnet thing in kindergartners?" And I'm like, "Magnets?" And then I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "They are fascinated by magnets." And it's one of the books that they read and discover. And we happen to have, I don't know how many people know much about farms, but I grew up on a farm and we had what were cow magnets, right? They're the big magnets and you put them in, sorry, I gotta explain it. You put it, they swallow it, and then it gathers all the material that could harm them in their ruminant, which is their multiple stomachs. But I bought a whole bunch of those for kindergarten so that they could actually see the action with the magnets. So I gave them some, and then the kids would use it to pick up money and different things when they were cleaning. And he's like, "They're just crazy about magnets." That's exciting to us when that world opens up to them because they learned about something because they could read and access that information, and their world just got bigger. So I know that was a little side talk, but it was a good one. Alrighty, K-5 Tier 3. This is what we want to show you because we are so intentional about this work because time is so precious. And I'm going to get a little technical with some graphing here, but I want to drill down. To this point, I've been showing you the entire district grade level. This is one building, and I just want to show you the work that we do at the building level. So if you look up here, we have 2% that are below grade level. And then when you're looking at our progression up here, we have right now 53%, and then this moved from 23 to 35. What's really powerful to look at down here is we had 13 kiddos that we were worried about in this building, and now we're down to 9. Here's what's so important for us to do. It's February, and as Ken said, time is shortening. So we have to be very specific about what we do. So I love rate of improvement, graphing, and this is really important for us and our interventionists when we introduce this year, and I think Kathleen can speak to this as well. It has caught on like wildfire. They're like, "What is this magic?" And we're like, "It's math." And it's in relation to reading. So we have rate of improvement calculators for every grade level. And we are blessed. I gotta go over here because, sorry about that. In every building, our amazing reading interventionists. Uh-oh, what's going on? I might not be able to show you that because.
Go to slideshow on that version of it, Kathleen.
Right here?
And it should come to life.
I want to pull this up for you. There it is. Okay. I know this is voluminous, but this is the powerful work of our interventionists. I've scrubbed all the student names off this, but every grade level in our buildings has this profile of their students. Think of it as a dashboard, a health and wellness dashboard for our readers. And when this information comes up, when we're looking and we have red and yellow zones, we go to those additional screeners, the informal decoding inventory, the phonemic awareness screener, so that we can really find out where is this child's hiccup so that we can resolve that and get them moving in a forward direction back to Tier 1. So the powerful thing to see in this grouping is as you scroll down and do you see all the blue arriving as we're moving across the year? That's really exciting for the interventionists and the classroom teachers to see. But then within each classroom, we're looking at students that they might be Tier 2, but our reading interventionists are working with them because they need some extra strategic support. And at this point in the year, if we're still seeing some yellow and some red, we plug this information into the rate of improvement calculator. And I hope you can see those. I did an example of student A and student B. So when we look at student A, 47% is not what I want to see in terms of potential rate of improvement when I only have 4 months left, pretty much, for that student to work. So when we look at that student, we say we have to change the intensity and all the features about their intervention so we can increase that rate of growth. And we're very specific and very intentional. The program allows us to be this diagnostic with our students because we have the consistency, we have the tools, and we have the process in which to do this. When you see this student over here with 141% rate of growth, that student's on trajectory by week 42 of the school year to achieve grade level proficiency as a reader. So what we might do here, we have 40 weeks in the school year, so we're 2 weeks shy. They might increase time for that student for the next six-week cycle in some of the related skill development, and then we'll check in on a rate of improvement again in 6 weeks and see if our adjustment has had a significant impact to change the trajectory. So there's a lot of math and science to this, but it helps us be so intentional. And think about, if we go to any analogy, when you go to work and your tools aren't there for you, you have to spend time seeking things out. And we worked really hard with our interventionists and with our teachers to get those tools right in their hands so that the power of the work and the time that they spend with the kids is the most meaningful that it can be. So that's my little snapshot that took a little bit longer than 13 minutes. But does anyone have any questions for myself or for Ken? I can't wait to show you math.
Just to say, it's Moneyball for education, if you've ever seen that movie, so made total sense to me, so thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Oh, I'm glad. That actually brings me joy. Yeah, because I can get a little too acronymy, so I try not to.
I just want to say that a couple of things. First, I don't think that kids realize the assessment level of iReady and Dibbles. I don't see the stress or anxiety that come with like, oh, the state test is coming or something like that. When they do the iReady, they're like, oh, we got to do iReady today. They got to do iReady today. So I think that's important to realize as well. It is an assessment, but the kids aren't really feeling that assessment pressure.
Which means it's how the teachers are framing it.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
And so that actually was the impetus for why we changed our APPR plan, because it used to rely on iReady. It was such a valuable instructional tool. We wanted to get what we called at that time the long shadow away from it, so we took it out.
Good idea, yeah. And to the teachers, very quickly, I had heard of a student who I may know closely who got an email from, the parent got an email from the teacher saying the strides that the student had made. And in the email, and this impacted me as a parent, a teacher, and a board member, she said, and it's only January. Imagine what will happen by June. And I just have to say to parents out there who have struggling readers, hang on. You'll see it. It's coming. These really do work. And I'm very, very proud of the work that the teachers and the students are doing with this. It's very impressive.
And a lot blossoms in the spring. I always say to teachers, kids hit their stride. They really do. It comes together.
Yes.
And certainly the principals and Nancy and our special ed team will tell you the number of teachers who are saying, I can't believe where my kids are. Typically, here's where we are. Now, I want to be very careful, though. We're in year 3, again, asterisk of this. There's still work to be done, right? There's still training to be done. There's still refining to be done. There's still adjustments that we have to make with some frequency, quite frankly, and we'll continue to make those. But if this is where we are now, imagine when this group of kindergartners actually, to Jason's point, enters middle school. Think of that group when they're seniors and realizing that vision that we're setting out, where not only can they read and read well, they're advantaging themselves by getting through coursework without that additional remediation that just opens up all of those potential pathways for them. So kudos to the board for, again, having faith in us, quite frankly, to do something that was pretty dramatically different at the time. As I said, we want to be humble about this. We still have things to learn. We still have room to grow. But with the principals being trained themselves on this, some of you recall before we started this process, Kathleen, Nancy, all of our principals, Sharon DiAgostino at the time, we went down to Georgia and we were trained on these programs so that we knew them and then could in turn support our teachers as we began this process.
Another exciting, and I promise I'll stop talking, we've had a lot of area schools reach out to us and come do visitations in our elementaries because they're like, what are you doing? You know, and our philosophy is come, and if you have an idea and you make it better, you know, we share freely. I always say to Ken, so-and-so asked for this, Ken, and he goes, yep, just remind them if they make it better, tell us how. And so we can be partners in that work. So thank you so much.
Dr. Chaucer, where are you?
She's back.
2 out-of-state school districts so far that you're working with on this as well?
So be well, drive safe, stay awake.
Thank
and
you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Skelly.
Ken, are these done?
Does that
Yes.
conclude the superintendent's report?
At long last, yes. Thank you all for your tolerance of this tonight. Lots to go through.
There was lots, and of course, you know, the budget is incredibly important, and it's a busy time of year for us in terms of the budget reviews. So we'll continue to have those through the vote, and always wonderful to hear about progress with our elementary students. For committee reports, there was an Audit and Finance Committee meeting earlier. Do we have a report?
Mr. Evans.
Yeah, Jason, I'll report out. So the internal audit team met earlier. We met with our partner, Joe Hero of the Bonandeo Group. We really discussed 2 areas. One of them was the internal audit findings. To walk through those, they're all minor findings, and those findings that we did see really are kind of all correlated. They all have similar in nature. I'll walk through each of those. One of them was in the extra classroom activity funds on the club ledger. The funds were not logged on the ledger. They were submitted to the treasurer, but not logged prior to being submitted. The second was the National Junior Honor Society. The profit loss statement that they were using was an old statement, didn't have the signature section on there. They could have signed it, they did not. That has since been updated. And then the last one was the cash receipt funds, was not submitted. We had one that was not submitted inside the 24 hours, but like I said, was just one of those. Lastly, we did talk to the group in regards to requesting an audit of our lunch program. Inside that program, really what we're looking at is the third-party contract, and then really following the audit from the point-of-sale transaction all the way to the reimbursement. So this is really important in today's environment with all the free school lunches.
Well done.
And are there any next steps or next meetings?
Not at this time.
Brian will follow up with the auditor to establish the focus, as Wayne suggested, on the school lunch fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Correspondence. Correspondence to the district.
Masking middle school windows impact on students relative to the February 10 protest. A couple of emails regarding our school resource officer relative to fights in the high school themselves. And then we actually have received a number of emails that were complimentary to staff and the team for the work that's been going on.
Board received 4 emails since the last meeting. 3 were COVID related. 1 was regarding remote instruction. Announcements. Mr. Williams.
Just a couple things tonight. The March is Music in Our Schools Month, so we've started to kick off a series of concerts. The elementary schools are doing their winter concerts this week and next week. They're here in the high school auditorium, 7 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So if you want to see one of the concerts, I think Jason referred to one earlier, but 3 more coming up in this next 2 weeks, as well as the high school itself puts together a Pops concert on March 12th. It's a Saturday evening program, and they have all of the performing groups in the high school in different locations in the high school, and they kind of rotate the crowd around. So come on out and enjoy some of the music. We'll bring in some of the music students on your next meeting on the 16th for recognition as well. March is also the Pick a Reading Partner program in our schools, the PARP program. Basically, the elementary schools have started their annual reading month, encouraging families to read together, and they have a variety of activities that go on throughout the entire month. Tomorrow night is the high school hosts an open house for the current 8th graders and their parents so they can learn about the high school. So there's a series of presentations here in person between 5:30 and 7:30 tomorrow night. Presentations on our early college high school program, the AP World program, how to schedule and get their 9th grade schedule set, as well as a question and answer session with the administration. They do tours, as well as they have all the club and activity information in the cafeteria. So again, that's tomorrow night between 5:30 and 7:30. And then next week, we have our virtual kindergarten orientation for the new parents coming in with kindergartners next fall. The elementary schools put that on with some of our other staff, and they're going to utilize the, doing a video conference format with the families. So they'll be setting that up for next Wednesday, March 9th at 6:30 p.m. And that's it.
Thank you, Stuart.
Any other announcements?
Not from us.
Board members?
I don't know if it's an announcement or wait to the end, but just kudos to the boys varsity basketball. Great season and how far they got. A little short, but it was a great season. Yeah. It's awesome to watch them play. So.
It was. They made it into the second round of the sectionals, and season ended at Hudson Valley, was where the game was last Saturday.
And Matt, to that point, watching, even you saw it tonight, the team had one of the dodgeball teams in place. Watching the younger kids, how they react now to the boys, to the varsity players. Oh, they just, that look that they have for these kids. So success tends to breed success, and my goodness, across so many programs, as Jason said at the outset, from Science Olympiad, wrestling, the ski team, what they've done, and certainly the basketball team. It's been a great season for us.
It has. All right. Old business. Do we have any old business?
We do not.
All right, moving on to new business then. We have our resolutions. May I have a motion to approve resolution number 397? I'm sorry. So the first 6 resolutions are votes on policies. These are the first read and tabling of the policies. So what this means is tonight we're just approving that first read. There was going to be a 28-day waiting period during which time modifications, changes can still be made to said policy. 28 days out, there'll be a second vote on the policies, and then the policy as written will become in force. Does that make sense to everyone? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Motion to approve resolution number 397, Board of Education Policy Manual File
You could go through all of them as one if you'd like.
7553, hazing of students.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution 397 passes. Motion to approve resolution number 398, Board of Education Policy Manual File 3421, Title IX and Sex Discrimination.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion for resolution number 398 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 399, Board of Education Policy Manual File 7551, Sexual Harassment of Students.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution 399 passes. We have a motion to approve resolution number 400, Board of Education Policy Manual File 7521, students with life-threatening health conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution 400 passes. We have a motion to approve resolution number 401, Board of Education Policy Manual File 8130, Equal Educational Opportunities.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 401 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 402, Board of Education Policy Manual File 3420, Non-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment in the District.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 402 passes. May I have a motion to approve resolution number 403, Board of Education Policy Manual File 7513, Administration of Medication.
So moved.
Second.
And do we have discussion? I believe we do.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes, I did want to discuss one section regarding sunscreen, and there's a comment there that the second sentence, the student's parent or person of parental relation must provide written permission for the student to carry and use sunscreen, which will be maintained by the school. And I'm just wondering if that is really needed to have that documentation and have the school have to maintain that versus, someone on a sports team just has sunscreen on them and they want to apply it themselves, at the high school level. So my discussion is, can we, strike that one sentence?
We will check on that. That's actually in the current policy,
Okay.
and I believe that is a requirement, but I will confirm that and get back to you on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That was it.
Right, and I think we're also interested in whether potentially there's differentiation between grade levels with that as well, whereas it may make sense in the policy for the elementary level. Again, I think to Law's point, a high school track student in the spring, season, is that layer of policy really appropriate or needed? So,
Great, thank you.
right, so again, the vote tonight will just have it be sitting for the 28-day period, and modifications and changes can go up until the next vote on it. So there's still room for modification. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 403 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 404, appointment legal counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 404 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 405, award of bid, auto, truck, and bus parts.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 405 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 406, budget transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 406 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 407, field trip, Science Olympiad.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just thanks to Ms. Rousseau and Mr. Poirier for their leadership within that group. Again, it's been a good run for them.
Yeah, it's been great. They placed third in the regional, which was hosted here at our own high school, and best of luck to them at the states. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 407 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 408, placement of students with disabilities.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 408 passes. I have a motion to approve resolution number 409, placement of preschool students with disabilities.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve resolution number 409 passes. Resolutions number 410 through 422 are recognized as a consent agenda for the purpose of Board of Education action. May I have a motion to approve resolutions number 410 through 422?
So moved.
Second.
And just a couple of discussion items. Resolution 410, the memorandum of agreement. I asked for some additional information to be shared with the board. And just so I understand this appropriately, there was some reclassification of some of the interscholastic athletic, I'm sorry, what's the proper word? The coaching appointment amounts. And the sum effect of that would be a 1.1% increase in the budget. Is that?
At most.
At most. And is it fair to say that potentially there could be some savings realized in other areas of the budget that potentially would offset this, just kind of in the natural course of affairs during the year?
We're talking about $9,000, so
Yeah.
relative to a $94 million budget, that's safe to say.
Well, I meant within the interscholastic athletic budget, but
$802,000, so same answer.
excellent.
Scale, yeah.
Just wanted to confirm. And then the other thing is in Resolution 411, we have some resignations, and there's some long-term resignations in there. We absolutely want to thank these folks for their service. They will all be with us through the end of the year, and we absolutely hope that we would be able to see them at a recognition ceremony at the end of the year. Is there any other discussion on our consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to approve the consent agenda, resolutions 410 through 422 passes. That concludes new business. Now at the point in our evening where we have a second public comment. Stuart, do we have anyone signed up for the second public comment period? We do not. Do we have any representation from our associations?
We do not.
Okay. Any PTA updates?
Just one tonight. The Gordon Creek PTA is hosting a fundraiser next Wednesday. If you either dine in or take out from Augie's from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. and mention Gordon Creek Elementary School, the PTA will receive 10% of proceeds.
Fantastic.
Great, thank you.
Just a quick note for the board, you've had this information in your reviews. I would like to take a moment to introduce Pam Bordas, who is here observing tonight. She is one of our administrative interns this year and has already proven herself incredibly valuable in some of the work that we're doing. So welcome, Mrs. Bordas.
Yes, thank you and welcome. Okay, the board does have reason to adjourn to executive session tonight for discussion about employment of a particular individual or individuals, and we will not be returning to public session. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.